My name is John Kellewert. I was in Nepal from 1984 to 1988. And, they always used to say you have to have 12 children. That was the story. You have to have 12 children because 6 of them will be girls and they'll go with their husband's family. 3 of them will die. So if you've got 6 boys, 3 of them will then die. So you have 3 left, because I can't remember what the exact figures were, but high infant mortality rates, particularly for children under 5. So if you've got 12 kids, 6 girls will leave. Of the 6 boys, 3 will probably die. Of those 3, 1 will probably go off and become successful. 1 will, be the black sheep of the family, and the other one will be the one to take care of the parents. So if you want to have Social Security, you have to have 12 kids. Yeah.
Interesting.
Lived with the family. We pretty much pooled our resources. It was pretty remote area. The road was just coming to the area. A plane came once a week, and to walk out, it would take about a week to get to a roadhead before the road was actually constructed into the area while I was there. But the family was pretty simple farmers. They only had a small amount of land, not much resources, a couple of animals, and we pooled what we had. I would generally cook my own food in the morning the days that I was there, and then in the evening we fell into a routine of, since I was out and about, I could pick up vegetables or eggs, come back, I would prepare something like that. They would either make the rotis, the bread, or rice, and then we'd eat together. But again, reading through the journals, one of the things I really recall is I never knew the name of the woman. She was either so-and-so's wife or so-and-so's mother, or I called her sister-in-law. But I have no idea that was just not the culture. You did not address each other women particularly by first names. It was by their association to somebody else. One particular event that kind of is still very important to me, and actually I was contacted by a friend that I was in Nepal with, checking with me about this story because I had related to him a long time ago, and he was telling it to his students where he teaches. And it was during one of the elections periods in Nepal, and it was pretty much recommended that volunteers either stay low or maybe get out of their villages during the election period just in case anything developed, or violence, or just too much activity going on that might be good for a foreigner not to be involved with. And so I decided to go with 2 other volunteers on a hike to a national park that was near where we live. But it was about a 3-day walk, and it was up at about 12,000 foot elevation. And story was that there was a Baba, a Hindu, a wise man that lived up in this national park. And so, but let's go see this guy. Let's go see this national park. A national park isn't a very common thing in Nepal like it is in the U.S. They're pretty rare and often, special places to see, either because of the flora that's there or the elevation or the setting. So this one, Kapta, it was called, in far western Nepal. So I walked a day to pick up one volunteer, and then she and I walked another day to pick up the other volunteer, and then we set off for this national park that I think was about 2 days away. And it was in a very remote area. Usually in Nepal you're walking from tea shop to tea shop, and you're around other people because everybody else is on the move on footpaths. So it's common to see folks along the way. But in this walk, I think we walked for a day and didn't see anybody. So that was a little unsettling. And then at one point we ran out of water, but then we realized we had bought tomatoes a couple hours earlier, so we sat down and ate the tomatoes to get a little bit of liquid into us. And then we were just kind of going along. We thought we were going the right direction, but of course there's no, GPS, so there's no road signs or anything. We thought we were in the right place. We ended up staying in a water buffalo shed that were up in the high mountain areas just to get some shelter overnight, and writing in the journal about, we thought we were safe, and then it started to rain. And then the roof was not very good, and we got soaked. But then the next morning we got up and we got along and got to the national park headquarters, which had some very beautiful and comfortable guest houses that were there. So we were able to stay there, rested up. And all the time we had been walking along, we said, well, if we're going to see this Baba, We're going to talk to him, and he's the person that everybody says he is. We better come up with a really good question to ask him. If he's so wise, if he's so all-knowing, if he was purported to be 140 years old, and all kind, lots of legend and folklore around this man. So I said, well, let's come up with a question. What are we going to ask him when we get there? So I thought, I've lots of time to read in Nepal, so I've been reading some philosophy and different things. And the question I had is, where does space end? Does it just keep going on, one solar system after another, one universe after another? Where does space end? Is there some boundary that contains space? So I thought, that's my question I'm going to ask him. So the three of us got up the next day and we went to visit the Baba, and he greeted us and had some tea for us and sat down and talked to us, very gracious with his time and lots of hospitality. And he actually had been fasting, so he was kind of laying on a bed while he was talking to us because he had very little energy. But he was, talking to us, asking us, where we were from, what we were doing, and, the other volunteers or foreigners that had come to meet him. And then just out of nowhere, he turned to me and he said, "Space ends where time ends." I'd not.
Space ends what?
Space ends where time ends. I did not ask the question. I did not. We weren't on any conversation like that would have looked at that, but he just turned to me and said, "Space ends where time ends," which is a very kind of, as I understand it, a very Hindu notion of the universe and time. It's cyclical. It'll just go around and come back to where it started from again. So I said, "Thank you, Baba," and that was, a pretty unique experience. So
very
yeah,
unique.
yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah. There's a wonderful festival in Nepal called Bhai-Tika, which is Brother's Blessing, and it's where the sisters in a family give blessings to the brothers, and then the brothers give some type of gift to the sisters in the family, and then there's usually a big meal that goes along with it. And it was just struck the number of times that I was invited to celebrate that with folks. There were a couple of people that I was very close with. One of the language trainers and her family, spent time with them quite a bit in Kathmandu, but also just those ceremonies with both the family I lived with in Kathmandu and the family I lived with in the far western part of the country, of just kind of being totally accepted into their family and expected to be there, not kind of, well, you're the foreigner and we're probably going to get something good out of you as a gift, so will you invite you to this, but you're expected to be here because you are part of this family. So it was just very touching and kind of a wonderful thing to have when you're pretty isolated from your own family. Yeah, the family I lived with in the western part of Nepal, the woman would have to walk 2-3 hours to collect firewood because the area we were in was pretty much agricultural, but it was pretty much deforested too. So she would have to make excursions with other women to areas to gather firewood. Water was always an issue too. Clean water, critical issue, and health that goes along with that. Probably too much information, but the other thing that's kind of common in my journal is all the health problems that I faced in terms of the bouts of giardia, amoeba, paratyphoid, salmonella on a pretty regular basis. So, and as I look at my pictures of myself, I was probably about 40 pounds lighter because of all the walking and all the constant health challenges too. But what we used to say was the medication often made for really wonderful dreaming. So.
I'm curious about that. I hear about that, the dreaming. What, you'd have some very bizarre dreams? Very
bizarre dreams with some of the, particularly whatever it was that we used to take for giardia. I can't remember what the medication was, but very strong medication that would often lead to just kind of strange dreams. I'd probably best not to recount any of them. And the other kind of, I call this my pathetic Peace Corps volunteer story of being very remote. So where I was in the village, if you had vegetables with the meal, that was a luxury. Meat was a couple of times a year. Typical side dish was nettles to go along with your food. The plane would bring my mail packet once a week, And about once a month I would get medication, that I'd need to take. And I remember I didn't have to take malaria medication on a regular basis, but if I was traveling to areas that malaria was a problem, you had to take medication before you went there, while you were there, and a little bit while you were after there. But I remember the pills that we took, I think it was chloroquine, had a sugar coating on it. And that was like the only candy that I had. So I remember I used to try to get as much of the sugar coating off of that chloroquine pill before swallowing it, and getting to the bitter center and having to swallow it. So it was that was the one joy was, oh, we got chloroquine. I can suck the candy coating off the pill before it goes down. But you get by, and kind of one other kind of medical experience, we had to self-inject ourselves with gamma globulin every 3 months. So that always, you had to get in the right space to be able to do that. But the skills that you learn, along with the language skills or the cultural skills to get by, and the resilience that you find in yourself to move forward. So
I remember we were injected. We never had to inject ourselves.
I think we needed it every 3 months, and it wasn't sufficient reason for Peace Corps to pay for you to come into the capital to receive it. So you either had to find a really good friend that would give it to you, or give it to you yourself. So I opted for the self-administration.